Before we start refurbishing chisels, we need to choose reasonable ones that are going to have a long life and a serviceable life. The first thing to do is to check that they've got a usable length of blade on them. Both of these are quite short. This one is reasonable in length, but the handle is split, so replacing the handle would bring that one back and make it ready for refurbishing. The last one has got pitting on the back, so you wouldn't get a good edge, because no matter how much you sharpened it on the front, the pitting on the back would not give you a clean, sharp edge. Right, we've selected two chisels. One is a really nice clean one, good handle, good length of blade and no pitting, nice and shiny. The other one, good handle, everything's okay, it just needs a little clean up on the wire wheel, and that will be ready to refurbish as well. Right, this is a demonstration on how to sharpen your chisels using a Tormax. The first thing you have to do is to put the water into the tray to cool and lubricate the stone while it's revolving. We've got a small wedge here, a wooden wedge, which you slide underneath until the stone is just into the water. If it needs topping up, then top it up. You don't need too much, but you may have to top it up once the stone is revolving, because it does absorb quite a lot of water. That's a thing to keep your eye on as you're sharpening your chisels. The next stage is to set up the gauge for the Tormax. Measure the diameter of your wheel. This is 9.5 inches, and we set the diameter, or metric if you prefer it, to 9.5, and then the angle that you want to grind the chisel at, and the starting angle is always 25 degrees. Set those two on the gauge, and then the next stage is to mount the chisel into the holder, fit it onto the Tormax, check that the chisel is at a right angle in the gauge, and adjust it. Fit the gauge to the wheel, and you have two angles on the gauge. The longer angle is put next to the wheel. The shorter angle is the tip of the chisel. And with that set, it will give you approximately 25 degrees. This one's very slightly out. Adjust it down a bit. Lock it. Still not enough. That's reasonably close. Check that you still have it at a right angle. And clamp. Right, the next stage is to actually fit the chisel to the Tormax, switch it on, keeping the chisel clear of the stone, Notice that it hasn't soaked up all the water, but it's a thing you need to keep an eye on, because as it starts rotating, it sucks the water up. And now we just apply pressure to the stone and work the chisel over the full width of the stone, because if you don't, you end up with a stone which is unevenly worn, and possibly if you're sharpening small 1/4 inch 6mm chisels, you end up with a groove in the stone. Check to see that you're actually sharpening at a right angle, and this one at the moment isn't, so we'll take a little bit more material off. I mean, as far as being at a right angle, that's spot on. We have a jig here that we've made, which is quite a useful little thing, and it's the two angles, 25 and 30 degrees, to use as a final checking gauge that you are actually at 25 degrees. Having sharpened your perfect chisel, 90 degrees, 25 degrees angle, switch your machine off, and very important, make sure that you drain the tray, because if you don't, the bottom of the stone will get very, very soft and it'll ruin the stone. So, many hours of happy chisel sharpening. Thank you very much for watching.
So that is how to sharpen a chisel on the Tormek and get a good, consistent result. But of course, there are other machines available which you can use, and Ken Brown from the Ringwood Tools for Self-Reliance group will now demonstrate a couple of these to you.
The Workshop 3000 has got glass wheels which are double-sided. You can stick different grades of sandpaper on them. They work from underneath, so you don't even need to wear goggles, and it runs very cold. Just putting that one as the lowest grade, we'll start with 60, and screw it in. We put the chisel in to this slot here, which in fact you can move this around so that you can choose the point and vary on the sandpaper, but we'll put it on the right hand side for the moment. So the machine on, starting it in, and it's a question of feeding it up until it just touches, and then a simple plunging action and then taking it out and checking it. It's possible just to run through a whole set of chisels on any one thing, and already that's showing quite a clean. I won't finish that one right off. I'll switch to another grade. So it's just a question, next one up, 60 on that one. I've just marked it in indelible ink because it's easiest. So there's an 80 going on now, putting it on, ready to go. And again, same plunging action. Already that's clearly that up, but it obviously would need a bit more. And then switching up the grades, we would then go on to 100 and so forth. It also now allows you to clean, in fact we normally do that to start with, but allows you to clean up the underneath, and you can actually recover quite bad pitting by putting it on the top and just layering it down and holding it, and again not using too long. And we do keep water available just to cool that if it does get hot. But so that is cleaning up the underneath of the thing very, very quickly. It has an attachment for it which allows you to go on the top to do wide blade, things like plane blades, to run in across there like that. So that's cleaning that up. One of the useful additions is for sharpening broad blades like plane chisels is this jig which comes with it, which allows us to set to any angles, and that's set to 25 at the moment. You just move that to where you want. Lock the blade loosely in there, and it has the angles on there, and just put it in the jig and just move the blade up till it just touches that the setting point there. What it has, though we found it actually not as useful as we thought, is the ability to work a stroboscopic thing where you've got sandpaper which matches up with the slots on a slotted wheel, and at the speed it goes you can actually see straight through there, which means in fact you can then work from underneath and for tools which require like gouges. We actually haven't used that very much, and we find it's easier to use the Sorby for that. It's easier to keep control, and also the sandpaper is quite expensive on that. The machine itself costs just under 200. That I think is another 40 or 50. The sandpaper, or the glass substrates, they only come with two. We reckoned it was worth buying the extra ones, and they I think are about 15 to 20 pounds each. But it allows you to have different colour grades clearly on there, and you can just run through the grades. And generally what most of us do is put, say, a dozen, 20 chisels here in a line and run through the grades one at a time, each one, and then just change the grades and work up the grades. I think that's all. The machine is very simple to use. As you saw there, putting that in there, I could hold the end of it. We've never had anything overheat. If we're using it on top here, when you haven't got the cooling effect, then we tend to have some water available just to cool it down if necessary. The Sorby Pro Edge Sharpener comes with a range of abrasive belts, different grades, and they're fairly easy to interchange. And you can also set that's an angle here to anything between 50 and 90 degrees. Will take off next.
Well, I hope you found this video useful, and it will help you to get consistent sharpening on your chisels. Thank you very much for watching.